This episode refutes the notion that getting there is half the fun. Holy fucking shit, how did nobody die on this goddamn trip? I'm John Retton with my review, Dark Side of the Ring, Collision in Korea. And I was really excited to see how this episode was going to be put together because this is such a fascinating event, the backstory and everything, and the fact that they had so many goddamn people, no paying customers, to witness this World Peace Festival wrestling event that Antonio Inoki wanted to put together. Actually, I think his Chin influenced it. And then Antonio Inoki was like, yes, Chin, we will do that. I kid. Antonio Inoki, of course, one of the godfathers of Japanese wrestling. But seriously, that Chin, it's going to be on display in the Easter Island Statue Museum. This belongs in a museum. This was really interesting, hearing Two Cold Scorpios, Scott Norton, Eric Bischoff, and a few other talking heads. Sonny Ono, really good to see Sonny Ono on this episode, talk about how, man, things were fucked up. Who wouldn't want to go to North Korea? If you think things are bad here, they are nothing compared to what's going on in North Korea in 1995 or even now. Holy fucking shit. Everybody that is not a North Korean is seen as an outsider. God fucking damn it. Some of this shit was chilling. And next week is going to be the Ultimate Warrior episode, right after WWE and A&E do the fluff piece on Ultimate Warrior. So I'm going to review both of those because I'm going to tear into Ultimate Warrior. But before that, let's talk about this. So we have the opening line, what could be more international than having two big shows in Pyongyang, North Korea? Vince can't do that. Vince wouldn't want to do that. Vince would want to do a lot of things. Continue a show after Owen Hart falls to his death because of faulty equipment. Or, do a tribute show to Chris Benoit while details are coming out about the fact he murdered his wife and child. And then, recant on that and go to PG a year later and do all other stuff. Pay off a police chief, so Jimmy Snuka stays as his top star. Really enjoyed tearing into that episode. A whole bunch of things that Vince would do. He wouldn't do this. I will say how this came together, though, is pretty fascinating. You realize you're surrounded by a bunch of people that think you're the devil. Eric Bischoff says that. And Scott Norton says, you're living the wrestling life. You hit North Korea, that shit stops like boom. It was like being in a Twilight Zone. I want to say Scott Norton, one of the, best foreigners that went over to New Japan. Truly one of the best. He got over, huge powerhouse guy. I mean, he was he was seen as a tough guy in WCW, but he was mostly based out of, working in New Japan because he was revered over there. Him, Gordy, Williams, Scott Norton, really, I just wanted to give a quick shout there because I love Scott Norton. Love watching his stuff. I need to seek out more of his stuff on New Japan World because it's really great to appreciate him and the Steiners and just so many powerhouse guys that went over there and did some great stuff. But yeah, Scott Norton had a lot of chilling stuff to talk about. Bischoff's in Cody, Wyoming, back there seemingly after, I don't know if this was filmed before. This actually had to have been filmed before. Or afterwards. But when, Vince McMahon had him pack up and become head of SmackDown Creative, and then he fired him a few months later. So it's like, yeah, thanks for moving to Connecticut. We're going to pay you. You're going to do this. Make appearances on AEW. And then go back to Cody, Wyoming. Why the fuck did Vince do that? I mean, I understand fucking with Eric Bischoff in 2002, but why even that? Good Lord. Anyway, he reflects briefly on his time in WCW, that, he found out about financial abuse, theft and fraud and all that stuff. Yeah. People were pretty much plundering that company, if you will. That he was a fly on the wall because he was a third-string announcer, as he's talked about. By 1994, WCW was still a regional company, but there was a fractured relationship with New Japan. I think over what happened with Great Muta. Because Great Muta was brought over in 89, and he was seen as one of their big rising stars. And he starred in a few years before that. I actually saw a couple Battle of the Belt, championship wrestling from Florida, events that Great Muta wrestled, I believe, as a White Ninja. And from there, Muta got the face paint, he got the mist. He was cool. Loved Great Muta when I was 8 years old. Love Great Muta now. Pop huge when he showed up at, the big old, New Japan Ring of Honor event in Madison Square Garden. That was really cool shit to see. And, I mean, even with diminished knees from doing all the moonsaults and the kicks, it was still great to see Muta. But seeing Muta, on WCW programming again was really fascinating. Bischoff reestablished this relationship so New Japan talent could come over, and it helped boost the stock of the company. Japanese talents gave them more of a global feel, and it was something that WWE couldn't match. Yes, Vince had a relationship previously with Inoki back in is it 84? It was 84, 85, 86, I think. And then by that point, that was pretty much it. And then, of course, that got him in hot water when he had to go negotiate with Giant Baba to get the British Bulldogs back. And Inoki's like, why is my partner dealing with the enemy? But anyway, it did add a lot to WCW's product. And we get footage of the New Japan WCW Super shows. Sting diving on Rude, and Rude suffering that back injury that he collected on the Lloyds of London insurance policy. And he just became a manager and became all that because he couldn't wrestle. And unfortunately did pass away just under 5 years after that. I think that happened in May of 94, and he passed away in April 99. And then Antonio Inoki contacted Bischoff about doing the show in Korea. And Scott Norton talks, about his time in Japan. And we see footage of, him doing some stuff. And then Too Cold Scorpio talked about Inoki. And we see footage of the infamous match where Antonio Inoki beat up the Great Antonio. And if you don't know, read up about it. Great Antonio was just like this sideshow freak type guy. They could do strongman stuff. But, and this was counted on Cornette's podcast by Brian Last. And also there's other stories out there about it. But Great Antonio just got the shit beat out of him. You see like a bloody face of like this really, really big, fat, bushy-haired guy. And Inoki was revered like massively in Japan. I mean, from the time that New Japan formed, trained by Ricky Dozan, that was talked about a little bit later. He was a huge star. He's also a fairly high-profile politician. He liked to do stuff. He staged a thing with, Muhammad Ali that didn't exactly work out all that well. It was like neither guy could do their style. And in 1976, even with the closed circuit stuff, the closed circuit rights, it didn't do as well as they wanted it to. And you had Andre versus Chuck Wepner. You had Stan Hansen versus Bruno Sammartino, and there were other matches, but those were the main three. And then he basically, he did a wrestling, he used wrestling basically as a way, staging stuff to get Japanese hostages freed from Iraq. And so, yeah, Inoki did some good stuff for people. And also, if you read up about him, not exactly the best guy either. Take a look at the early 2000s when we had all the mixed martial arts and kickboxing stuff, and they were brought in from different disciplines to work with the wrestlers, and the wrestlers got cooked because even though they were tough, it wasn't the same discipline, and it drove New Japan business down. It really did. Like, there were some crowds, but it was like it took Gedo, Tanahashi, and a lot of others to bring New Japan back to prominence, because it pretty much just wrecked the opinion of New Japan, even though mixed martial arts and shoot fighting can work in some form in wrestling, it didn't work there. And I mean, I don't know a ton about Japanese wrestling history, but I know enough, judging with my eyeballs and judging how people reacted, that it did not work all that well. And then Inoki, they get an interview with Inoki. This is where, if you want to write notes for your own review or write notes to reflect on, you're gonna have to pause it. He had a political group called the Sports and Peace Party. He took on challenges the government didn't agree with. And he would meet with officials in North Korea where they were not popular. He wanted to bring wrestling to everybody there. Plans were put in place. And following the anniversary of the death of Kim Il-sung, he, it's like they wanted to invite world famous big star guests. And Michael Jackson, others came up. And Inoki asked Bischoff to put him in touch with Muhammad Ali, because Muhammad Ali had appeared on some WCW programming. I forget exactly what. I'm trying to think. I think he appeared at Bash at the Beach 94. I know Inoki did, but I don't quite remember. But because I know Muhammad Ali did appear on some WCW programming. And then basically it's like, sure, let's do that. Bischoff is thinking, because he's trying to basically just do anything at this point to get the company work. And I like Bischoff. I think Bischoff's a great performer, a great fucking performer. And he did help turn WCW around. Also, part of what he did to turn WCW around, ended up killing it, along with the corporate merger. Mostly the corporate merger. And he says, was it difficult to get the town on board? Oh, that was a comedy. Inoki wanted Hogan, and Hogan said, can't do that. Can't make that one, brother. Would have been interesting to see how Hogan would have handled being in Korea, given what everybody dealt with. And when Hogan turned you down, who was plan B? Ric Flair. And that Ric Flair's feelings may have been hurt because he was choice number 2. To be fair, though, if Inoki wants somebody and Inoki is the one putting the stuff together, you go with who Inoki wants to go with. And then Scott Norton learned about Tiger Hattori and Masa were talking, and they say, hey, there's a show in North Korea and you're going to be going. And Masahiro Chono, who, huge star in Japan, huge. I mean, massive, great talent. Him, Muta, and Liger were like the three main Japanese wrestlers that got me into New Japan. It's like Liger, Muta, Chono, or Muta, Liger, Chono. But anyway, Too Cold was excited because he's like America, communist country, whatever. He just wanted to travel everywhere. And Too Cold Scorpio, just want to say a little shout here, one of the best high flyers. Still going strong even now. I mean, I think the pandemic kind of finished off a lot of his appearances, but even into his like mid-50s, even with injuries, the guy can still do some great shit, do 450 splashes, do some stuff. And hearing him recount some of the stuff was really nice. Americans were not supposed to be in North Korea. It could take 6 months, to get clearance. So Bischoff said, yeah, I'm just going to go. Hawk, Scott Norton, Flair, Too Cold Scorpio, Benoit, the Steiner brothers, and New Japan talent head out. I was hoping they would have gotten Scott Steiner to be part of this, but depending on when they filmed this, he may have still been dealing with the after effects of some issues after because he was only at like one NWA pay-per-view back in, I think it was the January one, Hard Times, and then he wasn't there after that, and I know he's had some health issues. Maybe they couldn't reach him. Maybe he didn't want to do it. It would have been interesting to hear from the Steiners. But anyway, so Benoit also goes there, and you think Benoit would have fit right in with a country that kills people in cold blood because he killed his wife and child in cold blood. I'm not going to fucking forget that, head trauma or goddamn not. The guy was a cold-blooded fucking murderer just like Jimmy Snuka. Benoit's buried in hell. No matter what he did in his career, he fucking deserves to be ridiculed for it. So Ali joins them. Reporters are everywhere. First, they're talking, and this is Japanese reporters are talking to the wrestlers. Then Ali shows up. He did magic tricks. Ali seemed to be having a blast. And it was very cool to see some of this Japanese footage and see Ali, even though he was diminished at this point, the illness, the conditions that he had were taking effect, but he still had that fire to him. And there's a cool story a little bit later. North Korea, military sent over a plane. It was like made in the 1940s. It was like a freighter thing. Flair was freaking out because Flair had that plane crash back in 75. And then Too Cold sees the border, with cannons from South Korea pointing north and cannons from North Korea pointing south because they plain don't like each other. They get off the plane, nobody's there. The airport had dust caked this high, I believe that Scott Norton said. Their passports get taken away. Mike Chinoy, who is a former CNN correspondent, was actually tasked with covering this event. He said seeing the wrestlers and the people, coexisting, this culture of like these lavish productions, but the fact that it was a communist country, and if you spoke out on anything, you would be killed. If you said anything out of turn, if you looked at anybody out of turn, you would be goddamn killed. And they were assigned an attaché, basically, Bischoff's attaché told him he was only the 7th American to step foot in North Korea that wasn't immediately shot down or captured. Well, that's a great way to start a trip. And then Sonny Ono, he talks about how they can't, that the company said can't guarantee your safety. Sonny Ono, unsung hero or manager in wrestling. I mean, and actually he was a bridge to how New Japan and WCW dealt with talent. And I think Sonny Ono was underappreciated as a manager. Yes, he was a stereotype. I won't deny that. But he managed Masahiro. Did he manage Chono? I know he managed Yuji Nagata and Ultimo Dragon. And he managed, I want to say he managed Psychosis at one point, which is a bit weird. But him and Ultimo Dragon were a pretty good duo. And then Japan ruled, and Mike Chinoy goes over how New Japan ruled North Korea from the beginning of the 20th century, despite the fact New Japan wasn't created until 1972. But no, Japan around the end of World War II, that was it, and the feelings were still bad towards the Japanese. Kind of makes sense. And then they basically the wrestlers were used there as propaganda to lay bouquets of flowers at the statue of the, the late leader, the dear leader, Kim Il-sung. And, Flair, they showed footage of Flair talking about, man, and Flair was it was like raising a hostage statement. You take a look at them, it was frightening. As all to push propaganda subtlety is not one of North Korea's strong points. And then luggage, up 7 floors, military guys followed him around. We couldn't do anything. There were 3 channels in a room, and no, this is not back when, cable TV, before cable TV came along, 3 political channels. So what the hell are you going to do? Because, again, very authoritarian communist country. They want to control the shit you see. And, Scott Norton was getting pissed. He said, one of these little bastards is going to fuck with me, Mike. And, Mike Hawk, Mike Hegstrand, I believe it said. It says, I'm gonna, beat the shit out of him. They had, to clear getting pool balls to play pool. One of the pool balls, the cue ball, and it didn't go in the side pocket or the corner pocket. It went off. It landed at the feet of the military people. It bounced on the floor, and they got taken away. The balls got smashed. Like, how fucking dare you? Because they're American. They're enemies. Scott, you gotta settle down, because Scott wanted to beat the shit out of him. Because Scott, legit tough guy. But he was outmatched, because he was also in the country. But, yeah, they start to go nuts. Bischoff goes for a run, and he's recounted this on his Collision in Korea podcast, which I've listened to some of, but it also has Conrad Thompson as his co-host, and I can't stand Conrad Thompson. I don't want to ever fucking hear his goddamn nasally voice again. I just can't stand the guy. He just comes across like somebody that thinks he's bigger than he actually is, ironically, given his size. So anyway, it was empty at first, and then streets starts filling up because people are going to work. People are horrified, like there's terror in the children's eyes because they're American. They think they're the devil, so of course they're going to be scared of them. And the attaché was livid, and Bischoff's like, I was concerned for her. I thought she was going to get a bullet put in her head for what I did. Scorpio and Hawk, got into it on the bus, and then Scorpio had heat with Flair because of firing a number of years ago. F that pussy, he can, ride by himself, and then him and Hawk get in a fight. And words and slurs were also exchanged, I'm not going to repeat here. Sonny Ono also said that one of the things that North Korean people said was, don't R women. I'm not going to say the word, and please don't in the comments. So, Mike at this point, Hawk, he had hepatitis C and was on a medication that made him, kind of have flu-like symptoms. So even though he was big, he was weakened. And even though Scorpio got the upper hand, almost pulling his eyeball out, as he says, Scott says, well, regular Mike would have killed him. Scott then calls his wife in anger. And this has been recounted also, how he got taken to an interrogation room and basically told, like, no more phone calls. You say anything bad about North Korea, like, that's it. And then that was the most chilling part. That is something that, like, will stick with me. Just Scott Norton, like, this big tough guy, like, recognizing, okay, I know where the fuck I am, and even though I could beat the shit out of him, this is not going to work. This is not the time to get upset. No more, but anyway, one last thing of propaganda to honor the founder of the Korea's first kingdom. And then Ali ran to the top of the steps for I think it was this temple or whatever the hell it was, and he started shadow boxing like old, like he felt renewed, because Muhammad Ali was a free spirit and felt, the way he felt about various things, and this was good stuff. And that made my whole trip. Norton talked about how cool it was. Too Cold talked about how cool it was. Too cool it was, if you will. You look fine today. Anyway, Too Cold and Hawk go at it again, and then Too Cold gets some metal chopsticks and is going to shiv him. And Benoit says if you kill him, you're going to be, here for the rest of your life. Benoit stopping somebody except himself from murdering people. And I'm not going to forget that. But good they did stop Too Cold from doing that, because definitely wouldn't want, somebody trapped in North Korea unless they deserved it. And Too Cold didn't deserve that. He was angry, understandably. I'd be pissed too. And 170,000 some odd people. There were 2 lanes of people, 2 lanes of road where people were just walking. There was forced attendance, so nobody paid to get in there. It was like a TNA event. I kid, actually. It was more like a WCW event when they had to stop running house shows because they had to pay for the shit just to get 700 people in an arena. And yeah, 170,000, 190,000, or whatever the fuck it was. We're putting Mania in the dirt, Bischoff says. And the lavish production, like, you see some of the footage, pretty damn cool to see. I've only seen a bit, like a couple matches from Collision in Korea. I gotta try to seek out the full event. But they had no idea what they were watching. No reaction, no nothing. Inoki was trained by Ricky Dozan. Ricky Dozan was killed in November 1963. Very unlucky month, over here, and with JFK being shot. Always put the roof up when you're driving around, especially in North Dallas. So anyway, Ricky Dozan was actually North Korean. Once the Yakuza found out about that, he was killed. And, Inoki briefly talks about the training that he had with him. He wanted to honor him, and there was a connection between Inoki and the North Koreans. So he got cheered when he faced off against Ric Flair. So that was some pretty good stuff. And then there was no happiness in that place, according to Scott Norton. So they got a little bit of happiness. And Too Cold and Hawk, they don't have it out. They have words, and Hawk basically apologizes because he doesn't have his shit because he doesn't have meds. And there we go. That's pretty much it. And then they left, and Flair, they finally got their passports. They got back to Japan, and Flair and his expensive suit and everything kissed the pavement and was never going to go back there. Everyone reflects, and Ali apparently praised Scott Norton, says you're really good, and that was a big deal, and that was it. Bischoff did say, no, there was no paid attendance, so sure, I got the attendance on Vince, but maybe he got one over on me in the end. Pretty good stuff. Bit of a long discussion, but really, really fascinating one. Wait for my Ultimate Warrior one that I'll be doing this time next week, as I look forward to ranting about Ultimate Warrior. But yeah, North Korea sounds like a lovely goddamn place, doesn't it? Anyway, agree, disagree what I said? Like, share, subscribe, Twitter handle in the description. I'm John Ritlin. I'll see you soon.